Welcome again to the Was This Atlantis presentation.
There's a location in the Western Sahara Desert of Mauritania called the Richat Structure.
Did you go there personally?
No. So I have, in fact, let me give them a shout out. David Stig Hansen went there. It is a gutsy trip.
There's so much that points to that possibly being Atlantis.
I'm David Stig Hansen. I've been to the Richat Structure 3 times now. I'm driven by an urgent need to share a discovery that might just redefine our understanding of our forgotten past. I've started as a Google Earther in this region, but today I've put my boots on the ground to explore what appears to be evidence of a megalithic primordial advanced civilization.
In a previous life, David Stig Hansen wrote a book in Taipei under the pen name Gitz Ferrari called Not SARS Just Sex, a non-porn, non-sex tourism look at life in Taipei during the SARS outbreak of 2002. This book doesn't just draw parallels, it literally demonstrates that the COVID-19 narrative is almost a repeat of the SARS 2002 narrative, highlighting both the Wuhan lab and wet market origins of Patient Zero. Not SARS Just Sex is available for free on Amazon Kindle. The sequel, The Oil Sands of Alberta, is also available, and a third book is on the way. Stay tuned for more adventures, and don't forget to subscribe and share.
Stop what you're doing and subscribe immediately to David Stig Hansen's YouTube channel at youtube.com/@Stig. If you're interested in uncovering one of the greatest mysteries in history, this is the place to be. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button right now. After you've subscribed, make sure to like and share the videos to help spread this groundbreaking information.
Everything is gonna be alright. See the flame in your cold eyes, breaking free from the long night. Hold me close to the sunrise. Everything is gonna be
$7.57. Oh, it's so lame. I did a bad job. Bad job. Okay, there you go. Ready? Music. Should I play more? I like playing music. I like playing sound effects too. Okay, so 4 people watching, 7:57. You're not late to the party at all. At all. You're early. You're just in time. I'm doing this video in the middle of the night. Okay, not quite. 10 p.m. California time. We're looking at stuff. We're looking at the image of the Strait of Gibraltar. Let's zoom into that really quick. It's always fun to zoom in. And then we'll talk about what Plato said. So here's the Strait of Gibraltar. Now, why is the left and the right so weird blue? We don't know. They don't tell us. But when you zoom in, it really does change a lot. You get different rectangles and overlays and underlays of different spots. Look what's going on over here. Like, you can't really understand what's going on, to be honest, in the Strait of Gibraltar. But thank God, luckily, Google Earth or whatever blurs it all out when you get into the Atlantic Ocean. Although you do see these lines here, these certain scans that exist, they're from ships, I believe, in my opinion. Welcome. Everybody, welcome. Thank you for joining. It is, what is it, Wednesday or Tuesday? I don't even know. I have no idea what day it is. Today is Wednesday, January 21st, and the time in California is 10:16 p.m. Outside, you can see Orion, you can see Jupiter, you can see Gemini. It's floating straight up. It's going straight up. If you don't know your stars, I'm sorry. Learn your stars. 7:57. If you don't know your stars, learn your stars, bro. Learn them. Or lady, maybe. I don't know what 7:57 is. 7:57 to me is actually, well, I know what 7:57 is an airplane, right? That's all you got. That's all I got. Everybody's bored already. I'm losing viewers. But I promise you, this is about what Plato wrote about Atlantis. Okay? We're not messing around. We're not going to mess around. And a lot of people think, oh, maybe it's this translation or maybe it's that translation. However, now we have AI. We don't need to worry about no translations. We can go directly to the source, the ancient Greek. However, because I don't have the time, I can show you some of that. And it's very important right now for you to understand. Atlas was Atlantis. The Atlas Mountains, where are they? They're in Morocco. Okay? Morocco was Atlantis. That's what Plato said. Across from Cadiz. That's what Plato said. If you can't hear me right now, please shout out number 2. If you can hear me, give me a number 1 because I want to make sure that you can hear me. Thursday in Chicago. Old Caresto. Thank you for joining. And then, of course, 7:47. I know you're on board with me. 7:47. Thank you for joining because I did like your previous comments and activities. Thank you for saying that you can hear me. Number 1. What has got what? I'm a he? Oh, I was just joking about that. I knew you were. Just by your I could sense it. I'm a cis male, okay? My non-gay radar went off. Number 1, thank you for joining and thank you for hearing me. King Atlas was the king that the Atlas Mountains were talking about. Plato said, go through the Pillars of Hercules. That's why I brought those up first. That's them. I've been there. And I can tell you 14 kilometers across, except I'd like to measure that. Let's just measure it right now because I'm sick of the lies. That's the closest spot to here. Yeah, it's more than 14. Okay, so there's no lie. 14 kilometers away. But if you really go from this to that, it's more than 14 for sure. And that's important. I'm a middle finger throwing man. I'm a middle finger. I don't want to start showing my videos. There you go. It's actually 21 kilometers across. And that's important. That's important. What's this? I got a chat or something. Let me just see what people are saying. People not saying nothing. Nothing. Yeah. So 21. That's actually a surprise. Because when people talk about the Strait of Gibraltar across to what is known as Mount Musa or Mount Moses, and I've been there, I sat right there, I took a picture, it was in my intro. Okay, let me get rid of this. It's 21 kilometers away, 21 kilometers across. We got a lot of chats already. Thank you for joining. 757, thank you for joining, and thank you for your previous comments. I really appreciate. Thank you, Old Caresto, for being a subscriber. Everybody, please like, subscribe, share this video, because we are going to talk about what Plato actually said. And I believe Plato was a middle finger throwing man, just like 757 is. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Crossing of Hannibal, among many others. Hell yeah. Okay, that's something I gotta study that. I don't know anything about Hannibal crossing the Pillars of Hercules, but if that's true, I need to know. Old Caresto, 10 minutes. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go 10 minutes cray-cray. 10 minutes cray-cray for Old Caresto. We don't want to waste his time. We're not gonna wait his time. So what does Plato say? Here's what Plato says. This is Critias. Now, I have two documents here. One is Timaeus. Okay? I'm scanning through Critias right now. That everything you see with that line is not Atlantis. It's Athens, Greece. We're going to go back over that. And I say Athens complete. I wrote that. We're going to talk about all of this. Are you sure you want to go to sleep? Are you sure you want to sleep now? Because I'll tell you what, we're going to go over all of it real quick. This is about what Plato actually said. Okay? Or a calcium. That's what Plato actually said. He talked a lot about everything, the dimensions, and what Atlantis was. And I do agree, if you want to talk about the Richat structure, it was 4 times larger. Cheers, guys. I'm having this Coors. It's really just to give me a little liquid. I don't really need the alcohol. I'm done with liquor. I'm done drinking. Okay? Consider me Muslim now. Because the Christians drink, don't they? The Christians always have no problem. The blood of Christ, right? Right down their throats. I'm going to try to quit. Now, look. This is what I've been working with for about 8 years now. Okay, so I'm showing you everything right now. This is the document, but this is not the ancient Greek. This is a translation. The same translation. All right, so here we are. We finished Critias. Here we are at Timaeus. But if you didn't know, Timaeus came before Critias. Okay? So Timaeus was first. Now here's the deal. Timaeus gets boring quick. Timaeus isn't the story that okay, so these individuals, let's look at the persons of the dialogue. Socrates, Critias, Timaeus, Hermocrates. These 4 individuals are having a dialogue together. However, it's being written by Plato. Plato is the writer of this dialogue. Now, with Critias, he's the man, and he's not Critias the elder. No. Don't get confused. He's not the older. Critias is the younger. Critias the younger. Now, I'm going to take you to my presentation. I'm going to show you my timeline for all the ancient Greeks right here. Let me show you that. Can I get it bigger? Boom. No? I don't get what happened just now. Done. Okay, let's try that again. So what's happened here is because I've got it all large and whatever, a lot of stuff is gone. Oh, slideshow. That wasn't gone? All right, there you go. So, Courtney Shannon is giving me chats on my phone. In addition to my phone, I do have my computer. Let me just show you what's going on here. Now we have a old Carresto ready to go to bed, but he says, now take my time. Please stick with us. I want you to have the full breadth, right? That's the word, breadth of my presentation. Here, this shows Solon. Now, I have done this research. This is my graph. I created this. And the purple and the vision, all the stuff around it, that's not me. But the timeline is me. Herodotus was born a lot way before Socrates, Hermocrates, and a long time before Plato, right? Plato was barely born before Herodotus died. Coors, water with barley and hops. Yes. And I learned how to make alcohol with sugar and yeast and a tea bag and 5 raisins. So forget beer. I'm done with it. Now, as you can see in this timeline, Critias the Younger was alive when Plato was alive. The 4 people that we need to worry about in this dialogue is Socrates, right? He's right there. Timaeus, right there. Timaeus of Locri. Hermocrates, and Critias the Younger. Now, they were all born before Plato. Plato was younger, and he sat there and he transcribed what they said in the dialogue. Solon went to Egypt on a self-imposed, after he served his country, he became self-imposed, like, let me get the hell out of here. Solon left and went to Egypt because he didn't want to be judged for his actions while he was in office. Now, as you can see, that was 600 BC, and Dropidas was a good friend, and Critias the Elder was also a good friend. They were all friends. Callichorus was the son of Critias the Elder, and then Critias the Younger was the grandson. Okay, we're done with that. Let's move on. Let's continue. Okay, going back to the dialogue, Socrates, Critias, Timaeus, and Hermocrates all talked in this dialogue by our man Plato. But Plato was also a relative of Solon. Let's not mistake that. Now, Timaeus is the first dialogue. The second dialogue, which is up here, is Critias. And Timaeus shows the conversation before a long diatribe down here. I'm going to show you the diatribe. It starts way down here. This is Timaeus right there. He just starts going on, man. He doesn't stop. In fact, I just deleted it. I deleted it because he goes on for like 1,000,000 pages. And Socrates is the majority of what Timaeus is about. However, that being said, before Socrates goes off on his diatribe, there's a lot spoken about Atlantis, and in the words of Critias, written by Plato. What does Critias say? Well, that's very important. Okay? So if you go to the beginning of the dialogue, Socrates and Timaeus are going at it, saying it's so happy to see you, blah, blah, blah. And our friends are bitches and kick-ass narcissists, blah, blah, blah. Then we get down to where saying, okay, now Critias, you're going to talk about something that you're going to talk about later, and foreshadowing, that's Critias, the dialogue Critias. But before the dialogue Critias, in Timaeus, we get to about here, where let's make this larger so you can see it. Okay, so Socrates says, what about this Critias on the authority of Solon, not to be a mere legend, but actual fact. Actual fact. Okay? So stop calling it an allegory. In the first line of Timaeus, it's an actual fact. It's not an allegory. It's an actual fact. So stop saying it's not. I'm sorry. It's not an allegory. But that's just one of 5 examples. Now, Critias starts talking and says he's going to tell an old story which he heard from an aged man. For Critias, at the time of telling it, was, as he said, nearly 90 years of age. Wait, whoa, hi, gooey. Who's Critias? Critias the younger is talking about Critias the elder, okay? This is the translation that I've been using for 8 years. If you don't want to agree with this translation, you can go and get it directly from AI and have them describe it to you. I've been working on this for 8 years now. So don't judge when I say what I'm telling you. This is Critias the Younger is talking through Plato about what Critias the Elder said to him. Okay? Now, in addition to that, later you're going to find out that Critias the Younger still holds the writings of Solon. And Critias the Younger studied those writings as a young child. So it's not a telephone game, okay? It's not a telephone game. It's the direct message from Solon through his writings as interpreted through his students, Critias the Younger. And here you go, Critias the Older, because at the time of telling it, he was 90 years of age when Critias the Younger was 10 years old, okay? If you go back to my little chart, Critias the Elder was alive from 530 to 460 maybe, or 450. And Critias the Younger was 460, right? So before he died, about 10 years, and then 403. So there's 2 people here, not one. Critias is 2 people. So don't get tricked when you watch this. All right. How are we doing with the chats? Thank you for joining. Let me make sure everything's showing. Get into the video. I have my beverage, some snacks. I just ate. It's January 21st, 2026. Isn't that amazing? Thank you, 757. Life is awesome. Because if we didn't have life, I couldn't be here. Do you believe in reincarnation? Thank you for old Cresto telling me to take my time. Okay, so anyways, we're moving on here. So Critias is going to tell an old story to the group. And this is in Timaeus. Okay? Now, I do believe that the people in the room are the same people. But I could be wrong. I'm not perfect. He says, now the day was the day of Aperturia with the registration of youth, blah, 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 blah. One of our tribe, either because he thought so or because, what? Let's read that slowly. One of our tribe, because he thought so or to please Critias, must be the elder, said that in his judgment, Solon, okay, we're talking about the ancestor that brought in all this information from Egypt. Solon was not only the wisest of men, but the noblest of poets. All right, so he told his information in the form of a poem. The old man, as I remember, brightened up at hearing this and said, smiling, yes, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Solon had only, like other poets, made poetry the business of his life. Completed the tale which he brought with him from Egypt. Okay? So here's the first recognition that Solon went to Egypt and he came back with some information. Right? And had not been compelled by reason of the fact, blah, 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 blah. I don't even understand what he's saying after that. Had been as famous as Homer or Hesiod by any poet. And when you look at my timeline one more time, you can see that the, let me just make it as big as possible. I know how to do it. Boom. Homer is way over here on the left, 750 BC to 700 BC. So Homer was way before Solon. That other guy I didn't mention. I don't know much about all these ancient Greeks. I try, but I'm not perfect. But as you can see, Herodotus is here. Socrates is here. Aristotle is way over there. We've got Plato over there on the right. And we show his birth year as BCE 428 to 348. How many years is that? 80? A little bit less, a little bit more. It's hard to calculate BC. And here we are. If you look at my timeline, we have 400 BC, 450, 500, 550, and 600. Solon is over here. Solon's the one that went to Egypt and brought the story back of Atlantis. And then it was passed down through this family here. Follow the yellow brick road. Follow the yellow lines to Plato. Now, was Plato a direct ancestor of Solon? From my, I do believe he was. And from my research, he was. Okay, here's Plato. There he is. Okay, so Plato is sitting here with his book. What does that say right there? You can barely read it, but I believe it says Timaeus. If it doesn't, it says Critias. I think it says Timaeus, but I could be wrong. Very famous painting. And if you want to study ancient Greek, you have to study this painting. I promise. All right. 757 again says, awesome. Thank you so much for joining. Let's get back into it. Let's get back into the Timaeus, Critias. Now, I just mentioned this part. This is the beginning of what Plato actually wrote about Atlantis. Okay? And as we go down, he mentions Egypt and he mentions Sais, a place where this king Amasis came from. This Solon went there. And Solon, by the way, the word Hellene means Greek words, Greek language, Greek culture. He's talking about the comparison between Hellene and non-Hellene, which is Atlantis, really. Now, Timaeus is just an introduction. So when he's talking about these things that I created here, and I'm not perfect. I haven't looked at this part right here for a long time. But I can tell you that, in my opinion, he says here 9,000 years ago, we could go into the ancient Greek and reconfirm that number just to check later. I'm not going to do that right now, I don't think, but I think it's a good idea. Okay? Not just the foundation of Athens. Look at that right there. Observe that Plato gives the same date for the foundation of Athens. All right? So the date is not just for Atlantis. It's the foundation of the Athens and for the repulsive invasion of Atlantis 9,000 years ago. And we got a double. Wait a minute. Okay, never mind. I'm not perfect, guys, and it's important to read it for yourself and make sure you believe it. I've used AI to analyze this stuff. In my opinion, we've been told a lie, and I'm going to show it to you right now. Okay? Now, here we're talking about more. We can look at everything slowly. A lot of stuff's going on here. A lot of description about Athens and Atlantis 9,000 years earlier. Okay? Here we see a lot of important information. Okay? It came out of the Atlantic Ocean. Now, this is something we should take a look at. That's wrong. Undo. It came out of the Atlantic Ocean. Now, when you say that, you're talking about what Plato wrote. And what Plato wrote was very high context. So you have to understand when Plato said it came out of the Atlantic Ocean, what he wrote later on, he's talking about very specifically this part right here. Give me a number 1 if you can hear me. I hit my microphone. I'm kind of worried that you can't hear me right now. Give me a number 1 if you can hear me. Give me a number 2 if you cannot hear me. That means I should never see a number 2. Thank you, 757, for your earlier number 1. I need it again, if you're still here. Okay, so this is the Pillars of Hercules. When you go into the Pillars of Hercules, let's go in here. I think I got a picture of it right here. Those are the pillars of... Thank you, Al Bundy. Thank you. Thank you. Those are the Pillars of Hercules right there. Those are the Pillars of Hercules. You don't have a problem recognizing these two landmarks that seafarers used to recognize where they were. That's the edge of the Mediterranean Sea. Thank you, Al Bundy. Honestly, Al Bundy, it looks like you have a different account. I don't know what's going on with that, but I'm glad that it's been a while. I haven't seen you in a while. Thank you, Al Bundy. The Pillars of Hercules are right here. All right. That is the Pillars of Hercules. You can't tell me that it's something different. You can't. The Pillars of Hercules this is the South Monument at the Gibraltar, the British Overseas Territory, the BOT called Gibraltar. And I showed the ancient world side. This picture doesn't show the other side. I took a lot of pictures, but when I went there, the thing is that this was kind of I was learning a lot of stuff, and this is the ancient world side. They have the modern world on the other side. Anyways, I was just reading a message. Pillars of Hercules right there. Morocco right there, right? Okay, this is not the thing that I want to show you this right now. I want to go back to Timaeus Critias, okay? So, first of all, the word continent is right there. Continent, okay? Now, as you can see, it says above, the island was larger than Libya and Asia combined. Okay, grab that. Now, remember, if something is larger than the island of Asia, the island of Libya, the island of Asia, okay, that by definition is a continent. Let's not forget it. Can I make this bigger? Let me try. That's good. We'll go with that. Okay. The island was larger than Libya and Asia combined. By definition, that is a continent. And the word continent is right here. Okay, he says a lot of stuff here. Let me just read it. For these histories tell of a mighty power which unprovoked made an expedition against the whole of Europe and Asia. Europe and Asia? What? Okay. Do you think that's really the words of Plato? I don't. Europe and Asia is a translation. Europe and Asia is not what Plato actually wrote. I can almost guarantee that. As a student of Chinese and Spanish my whole life, I'm a linguist, okay? I've been teaching English for 30 years. I'm going to tell you, when you say that, where was it? Where was that part? I'm looking for it. What did he say? Wait, where was it? I got lost. The island of Libyan Asia put together and was the way to other islands. From these you might pass to the whole of the opposite continent which surrounded the true ocean. Whoa. Now wait a minute. Surrounded the true ocean. What surrounds the true ocean? The Atlantic Ocean is the true ocean. And what surrounds that is this land right here. That surrounds the true ocean. Okay, the continent he's talking about is not in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. The continent that Plato is talking about is over here, closer to the Pillars of Hercules. Keep reading and understand. Let's read it again. Many great and wonderful deeds are recorded of your state in our histories, but one of them exceeds all of the greatness and valor. For these histories tell of a mighty power, which unprovoked made an expedition against the whole of Europe and Asia. Okay, an expedition against the whole of Europe and Asia. What does that even mean? What it means is an expedition means I'm going to attack all of Europe and all of Asia. That's my expedition. I'm going to have an expedition against Europe and Asia combined. Okay? And to which our city put an end. Whoa, what does that mean? It means that Athens, the city in Greece, stopped it. Okay? This power came forth out of the Atlantic Ocean. Now, when you say that, we're talking about here, okay? This is the Atlantic Ocean. Cadiz is the Atlantic Ocean. This is Cadiz right here. That's Cadiz. That's what Plato wrote about. And when Cadiz became across from, and yes, it's kind of awkward, but you're not going to say that it's across this way, are you? You're not going to say that, are you? That right there, that's it, across from? I don't think so. And I'll tell you why. Because it's more than just, oh, by the way, what is that island right there? Is that the Canary Islands? If anything's Atlantis, that's it right there. Don't talk about the Azores, which is over here. Don't talk about the Canary Islands, which is over here. Plato said across from Cadiz, and when you go 90 degrees, it's right there. But no, I don't really believe that, because I have a friend who lives in Cadiz. His name is Michael Donnellan. Even though I said he's my friend, I'm going to kick his ass. He says he can see the Atlas Mountains from his house. I don't even believe him right now. I don't believe Michael. Michael, you're telling me you can see the Atlas Mountains from Cadiz? I don't think so. I don't think so. But Plato didn't know where Cadiz was, okay? Plato knew where the Pillars of Hercules was, and he knew Cadiz was right there. Plato didn't know that you couldn't see what was right across the Atlas Mountains, okay? Tangier, Atlas Mountains, Atlas Mountains. These are the Atlas Mountains, and that's what Plato wrote. Let's take a look. The island was larger than Libya and Asia put together, and was the way to other islands. And from these you might pass the whole of the opposite continent which surrounded the true ocean. Okay? What surrounds the true ocean? That right there surrounds the true ocean, okay? The true ocean is here. This is the true ocean. The Mediterranean Sea is not the true ocean. So make sure you understand what Plato was saying. Then he says, for this sea, which is within the Straits of Hercules. Okay, very obvious. He's now talking about the Mediterranean Sea. Here he was in Greece talking about this story, how these people were in charge of Tyrrhenia, which is right here, and Egypt, which is right here. He's talking about an invasion, an expedition, he said. Translated from the ancient Greek, the expedition was to invade Europe and Asia. Take a look at these translations. By the way, again, I say that these are translations that aren't perfect. But if you really want to know, we now have something called AI. You go yourself and translate this directly from AI like I have. Okay? Now, with that said, I'm going to tell you, I've been preparing some other slides. Okay? I'm going to show you one right now. This one, it's right here. This slide is talking about the Atlas Mountains. Here's what Plato said. Plato's high context description described the mountains to the north of Atlantis without naming them. The context suggests he meant the Atlas Mountains. Here are the Atlas Mountains right here. Okay? So, when Plato said go through the pillars of Hercules, the allotment of land closer to the pillars across from Cadiz went to the twin of King Atlas. That meant that twin got this allotment of land right here. We've got many mountains that are referred to as the Atlas Mountains. Now, the ones I went to were down here at the bottom, the anti-Atlantis, the anti-Atlas. However, Plato said the mountains across from Cadiz. These are the Atlas Mountains right here. The range across the sea from the Iberian Peninsula is known to the Greeks, okay? So Herodotus and Plato didn't know about any other mountains. They only knew about the Atlas Mountains. The expanse includes all these different places, including down to Tunisia, but also down to Mauritania, what's called the anti-Atlas. Now, I do believe that Plato differentiated the open sea from the Atlantis continent by saying that the diverse, I'll show this to you later, the diverse islands in the open sea were also controlled by Atlantis. So this is not yet, that's what he said in Critias. We're still in Timaeus. All right. Which old friend? My friend who lives in Cadiz who insulted me? People can see Cuba from Florida Keys. Well, I don't want to start talking about a Cuban Atlantis. I do believe that the Americas were part of the ancient territory. But what Plato wrote was totally different. And Cuba is too far away. And what Plato wrote doesn't talk about that. Plato talks about diverse islands in the open sea. And maybe Cuba is one of them. However, the Americas certainly are not. They're a different continent. And I do believe they had that knowledge. Now, let's move on to the next part of my presentation, which is Critias. But before we go, let's make sure we're finishing everything here. All right, so down here, yeah, like I said, Tyrrhenia, and Egypt, okay, and over parts of the continent, and furthermore, the men of Atlantis. Okay, so as you can see, the continent that they're talking about ain't out in the middle of the Atlantic. The continent they're talking about is the continent that Egypt is part of. And the continent that Tyrrhenia is part of, which is over here, while it's not this African continent, it's right across. It's right here. Tyrrhenia is here. So when you look at what Plato wrote, he's being very specific. It's within the pillars. It's not outside in the Atlantic Ocean. Within the columns, he says. He says it right there. Within the columns, as far as Egypt and as far as Tyrrhenia for Europe. So he's talking about Europe up being part of up here. He's probably including Italy, but he doesn't say that. Plato is very clear about where this place is. And for all these deflectors trying to put it over in Santorini or in even worse. Wait, what's this? I'm trying to see. Why can't I share it? There you go. Where's the screen? No? It's like, oh, here? No? Okay, I guess I got to make it smaller to get it bigger. Where is it? Oh, that's because it's a document. That's why. Never mind. I'm trying to show you something else. Let's just make it really big. Sorry. I'm talking about this. And by the way, please ask your questions. Cuba. I don't think Cuba was not Atlantis. Hello, David in chat. Cardiz. People, believe your friend. Okay. So let's look at this. Maybe. Cadiz, friend, yes. Okay, I understand your point. Hello, David in chat. Silicone Dave, 2797. Glad you're all here. Thank you, Silicone Dave, for joining. And old Carreso agrees that Cuba was not Atlantis. Well, wait a minute. Slow down. Look, I'm not saying that it wasn't Atlantis. I'm saying that it wasn't Plato's Atlantis. Plato's Atlantis. Okay, this is the Pillars of Hercules. And these pillars are the ones that embark. I'm not even going to show that anymore. This edge right here. Those are the Pillars of Hercules. This edge of the Mediterranean Sea. Many boats went there and they floated there and they reported to Greek what the heck the Pillars of Hercules was. Now, did they go through them and they went out here? Less seafarers went through from the Mediterranean to here. Some of them from over here didn't go through here. Some of them from here, they went through here. Some of them never went. They just went here. You understand my point? This is a place that people recognize as the border from the internal to the external. All right. Now, let's go back to the writings of what Plato said. Before I do, let's okay, so yeah, that talks about Tyrrhenia and people in slavery. Okay, generously liberated all the rest of us who dwell within the pillars. This is a very important. Let's read it from the beginning. And when the rest fell off from her, being compelled to stand alone, after having undergone the very extremity of danger, she defeated and triumphed over her invaders and preserved from slavery those who were not yet subjugated, and generously liberated all the rest of us who dwell within the pillars. Okay? So Plato's telling a story of how Athens, when they say she, Hellenes is a she, right? But she didn't triumph. We don't know why they died. Later, Plato isn't clear what happened in the cataclysm. as far as any participation from Athens, it's very unclear, right? Okay, so this is Timaeus. We're still in Timaeus. He's talked about what Solon related to us. The narrative Solon. Now, then he moves on from that subject. He talks a little bit, but not much. He gets onto these other topics here that more or less go in alignment with what Timaeus says next. And what Timaeus says next is very boring, and it has nothing to do with the Critias story. So, now that we went through Timaeus, we're not going to go through the end here because this diatribe, which talks about the creation of the universe, doesn't really talk about the Critias story of Atlantis. So we're going to go back to the beginning here. Now, wait a minute. What page is that? It's only page 20. And these are 8.5 by 11 pages, or maybe A4. So the Critias story is literally less than 20 pages, okay? In fact, it's literally like 13, 14 pages. Where's Timaeus start? Right here? Timaeus starts right here at page 14. So therefore, Critias, which is more important. By the way, here's where Zeus just gets cut off and it's never finished. The whole story that Plato wrote is never finished. Why not? Was it blocked? Was it cut off? We don't know. We know that the story of Critias was never finished. Okay, Zeus was about to speak, and right before he spoke, whatever Zeus said was cut off. That's what Zeus said right there. However, we're going to go back to the beginning and look at all the different things that Critias talked about. And you can decide what to research. You can decide what's important. There's only 14 pages here. So you can decide what's important. I went through it myself and I highlighted all the important stuff. Let's go to the beginning first. But all these areas here is what they mentioned about Athens. And I got confused the first time I read it. And that's why I blocked it out. So I wouldn't look at it. Because that's what Plato wrote about the Athens group. However, before he started, he said a few things that were important. So, Timaeus was the first dialogue before Critias. And then Critias, Hermocrates. And by the way, if you didn't know it, there was supposed to be a third dialogue by Hermocrates. However, it was never written by Plato. That being said, you wonder to yourself, well, wait a minute, did he write other stuff after that? Or was that the last thing he ever wrote? Well, so far, that's not clear to me. I need a real historian to help me understand this. Did Plato just drop the ball? Or did Plato actually die and not finish it type of situation? Was he like finished? Now, let's get into it. Critias was the second dialogue in the trilogy that never became a trilogy because it was just two. Critias was the second one, and it discussed Atlantis in the most detail. Now, here we have Timaeus kissing Socrates' ass, and Critias also getting into the discord of kissing ass. He talks about a lot of stuff, the universe, the gods, but in my opinion, it doesn't really describe Atlantis much, so I kind of skipped it. Hermocrates even says stuff. And by the way, if you do a deep dive through AI to say what would Hermocrates have been about, This paragraph describes it all. Okay, it's a warning. Hermocrates probably talked about a warning. And he probably mentioned a bunch of stuff like, all these things you see here. However, it doesn't discuss Atlantis. So I never really studied it. However, Critias very quickly brings up Solon. So Critias contrasts what Hermocrates said. Critias contrasts the implication from Hermocrates, right? And then Critias uses this story from Solon to do that. He brings it up. In contrast to what you just said, Solon mentioned this. That's the beginning of the story of Atlantis in the Critias dialogue by Plato. He says, let me begin by observing, first of all. Wow, first of all, let me begin. Really? You think that's what they wrote in ancient Greek? I don't. This is a bad translation. So you have to take this with a grain of salt, tongue in cheek. Make sure you accept that this was a translation of the ancient Greek, which you now can just go translate yourself using AI. So you go check my work and see if I'm wrong. But for somebody to be so repetitive by saying, first of all, it's just a lie. It's a lie. Let's read it. Let me begin by observing, first of all, that 9,000 was the sum of years. It's not 9,000 years was the sum of time. No, it's 9,000 was the sum of years. Is that really how Plato spoke in ancient Greek? I don't believe so. But I do believe this is a good version of the translation. There are the same vocabulary words. Okay, let's continue. So 9,000 years elapsed since the war was said to have taken place between those who dwelt outside the pillars and those who dwelt within. All of those who dwelt within. This war I'm going to describe. Boom. What a sentence. His sentence structure sucks. Is that the way Plato actually wrote? I don't think so. He probably separated that and wouldn't say, this war I'm going to describe. He probably would have said, I'm going to describe this war. Right? It's just so dumb, you know? So, he mentions Libya and Asia. I wrote that in red. He mentions this in the very first paragraph, right? And says the barrier of mud that became impassable to voyagers sailing from and hence to any part of the ocean. Wait a minute. We've got this continent. Let's not deny an island greater than Libya and Asia is a continent. Let's not forget that. And then it was sunk by an earthquake. Okay. But became impassable by a barrier of mud. Well, wait a minute. Where's that mud barrier located? Is it here? I don't think so. I don't think there's any implication that the Strait of Gibraltar is blocked. So where's that barrier of mud? Is it over here? Hold on, let me get out here. Is the barrier of mud out here in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean? Is that how mud responds? Okay, I'm just going to give you the idea. This is the barrier of mud that I want to talk about right here. That's the barrier of mud. And this is where the ancient Tammans Merced Paleo River, a.k.a. the Atlantis River or the Atlas Mountains River, the water that flowed from the Atlas Mountains came through here. No question about it. There's the Atlas Mountains. There's the river. It cuts through here. It cuts through here. 100%. And then it comes down here. 100%. And it comes out here. 100%. That's proven. The Atlas River came out of here. So when you talk about what Plato wrote, he wasn't talking about an impassable barrier of mud in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. He was talking about the ancient Tamanrasset Paleo River getting blocked off. Okay, it's been an hour, guys. We're going to do part 2 later. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much. I really am happy that so many people joined me so far. Before we end the stream, we're going to have this music. Where's that music at? It's right there.
Sunrise, everything is gonna be alright.